Welcome to Comics Bazaar, the channel of comics commentary and arcana. This video features X-Force number 13, cover dated August 1992. Now, this cover really is eye-catching. It is a tight profile close-up on Cable on the ruined side of his face, the Terminator 2 looking side of his face. And it is penciled by Mark Pacella and inked by Dan Panosian. But I think that Panosian's inks in particular are really good on this particular piece of art. He's using a combination of tools. He's using a brush for the shine here on Cable's metallic shoulder, for the black background here on the other side of his face. And he's also using pens, of course, but also two screen tones. And you can see the dot pattern here on the shoulder also, but also on the side of his skull. And then a very particular screen tone of these fine dots for the shading around his metallic teeth as well. And there's even little tiny details of there's little numbers in there in this little section behind the cheek bone, but it's all in metal on this side of Cable's face. Interesting work on this one. And you know, I was thinking about, do we even need a caption here to the side, blowout? And I was thinking to myself, yeah, it kind of works to have that yellow here on the left hand side rather than just the profile image of Cable's face. But in terms of what the word is, it could have been anything. And I think, you know, if they put their bananas, that would work just as well, because this is a pretty banana story inside this particular issue. So let's open it up to the first page. So we get the story picks up immediately from the end of the previous issue. GW Bridge and the Weapon Prime unit have arrived, and it's an interesting layout here with these diagonal panels and panel breaks, as we have the Weapon Prime team making their way to the entrance of X-Force's Adirondack Mountain base. GW Bridge setting some charges there to blow open the entrance. Inside we see X-Force, they're getting ready. They're loading up their ship in order to go after Tolliver because Cable's determined they're going to take him out, and this is all in the wake of finding out that Domino has been a traitor to the team. Well, an ambivalent traitor to the team, but she certainly was initially feeding information to Tolliver on Cable and X-Force. And here's GW Bridge, timer's set, get ready. Creative team here, Fabian Nicieza writer. So Rob Liefeld is gone. This is issue number 13. Liefeld lasted on the book 1 year. And it's so interesting to think that the previous August 1991 X-Force number 1 sold 5 million copies. And within it, and just after 1 year, Liefeld's name is gone from the book. Now, over the last few months, he was only involved in the plotting, but he was providing thumbnail plots, which Mark Pacella was using for the layouts of his issues on the comic. But Liefeld is gone, and there isn't a word about it in the comic itself. On the letters page, nothing. And that's because Liefeld's departure from Marvel was one of bad blood. Marvel very unhappy with Liefeld soliciting young blood without talking to them about it. They wouldn't have wanted him to do it anyway. And yeah, so Liefeld gone, not a word about it in the comic itself. But Fabian Nicieza still dealing here with the plot lines that Liefeld set up. And fundamentally, one of them is what we're seeing here, Weapon Prime finally clashing with X-Force. Now, on the artistic side of things, we've got Mark Pacella on pencils, full pencils, Dan Panosian on inks, Chris Eliopoulos letters, and Steve Buccellato on colors. So let's turn the page here, and we get a really cool double page spread as those explosives go off and blow open the entrance to X-Force's base. So this is wild stuff here. We've got Weapon Prime posing and also going into action. And here we have the title of the story, Everything Hits the Fan, and indeed it does in this particular issue. And here in the narrative captions, we're told it is a battle that has been years in the making. Well, it's been at least 6 months in the making anyway, although the bones of it go back to X-Force number 2. Almost all the members of the Weapon Prime unit are individuals with reason to want Cable brought to justice. Bridge, Grizzly, and Kane. So we've got Bridge here, Grizzly up here, Kane here. Former members of Cable's mercenary outfit, the Wild Pack. Tiger Strike here, a new character. And Yeti over here, who in the previous issue was called Wendigo, but it's a different character. Current members of Canada's covert superhuman branch, Department K. And Richter over here, a young mutant formerly of the New Mutants, who was willing to fight his former friends in order to bring their mentor down, because it was revealed in the previous issue that when he was young, he saw Cable, or well, we know someone who looked like Cable, so we know it's Strife, kill his father. Now, interesting inking techniques on this page from Panosian. We've got some kind of dry brush or daubing of ink here for the blast lines emerging from Tiger Strike here, whose kind of power looks a lot like cannonballs in some way. We don't get a proper explanation of Tiger Strike in this issue, but he seems to be somebody wearing a technological suit. Don't know if he's human inside that suit or not, or what's going on there. I like the blast lines. I like the way that Panosian is cutting in a little bit of white media into the blast lines. You can see these white dots here, and this is indicating like debris from the explosion. And also he's using that craft technique again of the screen tone there for metallic surfaces such as Kane's arms here and this collar that Yeti is wearing around his neck. And yeah, so pretty cool double page spread. But this is what's extra cool when you turn the page. So GW Bridge yelling here, Weapon Prime take him down. When you turn the page, you get a double page spread of X-Force and their reaction. They're taken by surprise, of course, their reaction to the attack. But you can see here that the explosion is carrying over into this spread, and the ship here in the background, if we turn back the page, the nose of that ship is here in the top right hand corner. So this is, properly speaking, a 4-page spread of Weapon Prime going up against X-Force, but obviously the money or the will wasn't there to do a 4-page pull-out spread here, but that would have been cool if they'd have done that. That would have been very cool. So what's Cable's response? X-Force attack positions, simple as that. Here in the narrative captions, on the other side are a tentative group of exhausted mutants who have just recently learned that one of their own, Domino, is a traitor. The last thing Siren, Cannonball, Warpath, Boom Boom, Shatterstar and Feral want to do is wage a war against people who under the proper circumstances could still be their allies. So again, we've got those inking techniques from Panosian on this side, again cutting in the white media into the blast lines indicating debris here. And we've got that screen tone again here for the shine on Boom Boom's glasses here as well. And also that same kind of dry ink daubing technique for Cannonball's blast lines there. Interesting that Pacella in the art is doing a Liefeld. We're kind of leaving Cable's left leg here vague. Also Feral's right leg here the same, and Warpath's here in the background as well. So that's kind of like a Liefeld technique, and intriguing to see Pacella doing it. Is he thinking that he's still, like, is he kind of under the impression, or maybe under an editorial request, that he keep his art looking as much as it can possibly be like Liefeld's for the sake of artistic aesthetic continuity? I'm not altogether sure. So let's continue with the story here. And surprisingly, Cable makes a run for it. But in his thoughts, because you would be thinking, well, why doesn't he just body slide the team out of there? No, he doesn't want Bridge and Kane getting their hands on his technology from the future. It means he has to do something to open this up a little. So he tells Sam, he deputizes Sam, divvy the proceeds, like powers on like, I've things to take care of. So GW Bridge is firing his big gun after Cable, but he completely misses him. He got away. And let's continue. And now we get into the fight. So we've got like on like. And this turns out to be Kane going up against Shatterstar. And interesting kind of technique here on the panel border, where we've got these action lines cut into the border of the panel for the effect of Kane's punch on Shatterstar. It's an interesting little technique. I think it's a good one. And here again, we've got that dry ink technique for whatever this is, this exhaust line or blast line for Tiger Strike. And it is Siren that is going to take him on. And she says here, don't believe I recognize you from any of our files. And we don't get an explanation in his dialogue in terms of who or what he is. He says, you don't need to know who I am to remember who brought you down. Good point, she replies. Fine, then let's have at it. But our focus is turned to Warpath going up against Grizzly. So we've got some tough guy dialogue between the two of them. And Farrell impressed with Warpath getting down to business. And she goes after Yeti. The big hairy bow hunk is mine, she says, as she leaps towards him from behind. An interesting technique to leave most of Yeti's form here open for color rather than blacking in Yeti. So that is interesting little aesthetic choice from Pacella and Panosian, and I like it. But in terms of the rest of Weapon Prime, we've got Richter and Boom Boom trying to talk to him. So she says, what are you doing with these Phoebes? And he responds, Boom Boom, I'm sorry, we want Cable brought to justice. And she asks the meaningful operative question, for what, Rick? I mean, he's not exactly Mr. Cunningham, but you left us without telling us why you hated him so much. Until you do, I have to stick with my team. And he just doesn't explain about his father and all the rest of it. Instead, he just uses his power on her to knock her down. And he says, I still care enough about you to let my vibe powers, his vibration powers, only mash the floors instead of your lungs. But he's knocked from behind by Cannonball. And now a little bit more talk. Richter here saying, look what Cable's done to you. Hunted outlaws, living like terrorists. You've become everything we said we were going to fight against. And the two here, they've got questions. And they're a little bit confused. And they don't have immediate answers for Richter. And then the scene switches to Cable. So he's talking to the professor, saying, I can't let Bridge and his shield cronies have access to any of the materials in this space. And the professor says, it will take but a moment to reprogram our teleportation units to handle inorganic matter. Cable asks, can he handle it all at once? And the professor responds a little bit, how will I put it? Like, there's a shades of Alfred Pennyworth in the response here. I handled getting it here, did I not? Okay then, get it all out, except for the weaponry currently being used by any X-Force squad members. Okay, so this is all logical. And then here's an interesting bit. Then take the explosive charges we primed earlier to fool Tolliver into thinking his plans had worked and reset them to a voice-activated command. And the professor inquires, your voice, I imagine, correct? Right. So hardware slide now, so some of the hardware goes away. What is this thing here? It looks like a lettuce with something being done to it. Kind of weird. And the professor asks, where are you going, Nathan? Well, where does he go? By the way, this is not too bad of an anchor image of Cable racing into action. Again, you can see the use of that screen tone there for the metallic bits on Cable's arm here. And he is in that kind of battle armor costume designed by Liefeld that we have seen him wear in, I think, like the first issue of X-Force, if memory serves. And Cable says it's time to put an end to this fight. So here the fight is ongoing. Cannonball, it looks like he's winding up to punch Richter in the jaw. Warpath has Grizzly down. Farrell's gotten the best of Yeti. And GW Bridge is about to gun them down. He says you should never have trusted Cable, but he himself is shot from above by Cable. Stupid call, GW, he says. GW doesn't look happy there. Cause, when have you ever known me to back down from a fight? I know I can win. So we get a full page image of Cable dropping down to the floor And this is very reminiscent of a double page spread in the Cable miniseries, which was supposed to have been drawn by Rob Liefeld, but when he left suddenly to co-found Image, he was replaced by John Romita Jr. And there's a double page spread in the first issue of Cable, the miniseries Cable #1, the 2-issue miniseries, that looks a lot like this. Looks like Pacella saw that double page spread, liked it, and did his own version of it. So this is not a copy of that, but it's like it's inspired by it. And you can see here on the back that Cable #1 is being advertised, 48 pages. And yeah, so that's my little conjecture there, that he had sight of Romita Jr.'s double page spread and was a little bit inspired by it. Meanwhile, scene cuts away to Ofra Industries, owned by Gideon, in the deserts of New Mexico. We've got another kind of tilted angle layouts on this 3-panel page. And again, that use of the screen tone there by Panosian. And here Gideon is walking towards he's walking towards a locked room in which there is an experiment taking place, and his underling here is saying to him, well sir, our initial information would seem to indicate that success or failure is indeed important in relation to this particular experiment, but what is it? By the way, interesting the visualization here of Gideon's handprint unlocking the experiment room, and it almost looks like the bones of his fingers. Yeah, it's interesting just the rendering of them here in this particular panel. Yeah, intriguing, and a use of screen tone there on the panel that he is touching. Because if we should fail, then our reluctant participant in the experiment, Roberto da Costa, aka Sunspot, could very well die. And here we go. So what is being done to Sunspot? Gideon thought that Sunspot was an external. He learned that he got it wrong. It was Cannonball was the external. And now he is using Sunspot for some experiment or other. Great use of magenta on this page by Steve Buccellato. But also see the way that Sunspot is kind of manacled here. Seems to be inspired by Jim Lee's design for the manacling of Wolverine in X-Men issues 6 and 7, which would have been out recently. So clearly Pacella looking at those, liking what he saw, and doing his own little version of it here for Sunspot. Let's continue. We've got a page here of Cable continuing to fire at GW Bridge, but he's not shooting to kill. He shoots him in the shoulder. More use of that screen tone there in the background. And GW Bridge in denial. No, it can't end like this. Cable, don't do this. Don't let your soldiers, your children, become like you. And Cable's response is, I hate to burst your bubble, GW, but they already have. So we've got a nice action page here of Shatterstar going up against Kane, slicing off his metallic arm. But then this is an interesting move by Kane. He uses the ends of the wiring in his arm to electrocute Shatterstar. And he asks this plaintive question. What has Cable done to you? Same thing he did to me, I guess. Made me more of a soldier than a human and gave me exactly what I thought I wanted. Is it too late for all of you? Is it? Okay, so let's continue. Grizzly has got up and he's going up against Warpath again. And Warpath basically punches out Grizzly, telling him to shut up. So that's the what would we say, the answer to the question of who's stronger, Grizzly or Warpath. So this really is an issue that, you know, fans of X-Force of the characters would enjoy, because they're really taking out the Weapon Prime unit pretty handily. You can see it in particular on this one-page image of Feral slashing Yeti in the chest. He looks like it's a painful experience, and she says to him here, "Hasta luego, white dog," and that's him knocked out. But look at the nose ring here is amusing on Yeti as part of Liefeld's design for the character. And, you know, I was just thinking, like, this nose ring looked pretty odd in 1992, but it's all the rage now in 2023, 2024. Funny how that goes. And then we've got a page here of GW Bridge about to get up and saying here to Cable, didn't count on one thing, and what was that? That the children had learned all the sins of the father. Don't sound so self-righteous, says Cable. I still respect you, GW. Don't denigrate me by denigrating what we're doing here. We have a job to do. You have a job to do. We did ours better than you did yours. Simple as that. So while it was for members of Weapon Prime personal to get payback against Cable, for Cable it's not personal at all. It's just about business, getting a job done. So he goes over to Domino here, who's been revealed to be an ambivalent traitor to the team. He says to the crew, the fight's over, the next one's about to begin. They're back to the whole business of taking down Tolliver. And Domino says, but Bridge and Kane, they're injured. I already patched in a call to the Shield Medivac, Cable says. Let's make sure we can say the same thing about you, Dom. It's time to take it to Tolliver. That is to say, the same thing about you, that you'll live. And but here, things are kind of interesting here in terms of the storytelling. It seems like there's a little bit of confusion between Pacella's pages and Nicieza's script. So, like, it looks like the fight is over, but Siren is still fighting Tiger Strike. And, like, she finishes him here. And we do learn a little bit about his suit here, where she says, you're finished, boyo. See what happens when a sonic scream liquefies every circuit in your silly suit. So that's the source of his power, this suit that he's wearing. And that's the end of him. But also I kind of thought in her dialogue there, his silly suit, that is Nicieza taking a little crack at Liefeld now that he's gone, because Liefeld is the designer of Tiger Strike. And Teresa then says, we're getting good now, aren't we? Either that or they were a group of posers. Another knock at the Weapon Prime team. But Cable says here, and this is where it's a little bit confusing, I like the aesthetic, like the art technique and choices in this panel that bleeds off the sides of the page, where we've got reverse silhouette for the different X-Force characters here. And even though I wonder, is this Shatterstar or is this Richter here? But this is Domino, and Domino seems to be on the ground for some reason. But how did that happen? And that's what I'm talking about. There's a little bit of confusion in the visual storytelling versus what Nicieza is scripting here. But in any case, Cable says, in response to what Siren said, don't sell yourself short, Teresa. All of you handle yourselves very well. Enjoy the victory. You know Bridge isn't enjoying the loss. Isn't that right, GW? Knowing you've had this unit in training, how long? 6 months, a year? You see, it seems like he should be talking to GW, like it should be GW here, but it's not. It's Domino on the ground. And she says, what difference does it make? We better clear out before. And then the explosives start going off. Secondary charge detonation activated. Primary detonation T-minus 30 seconds. So this isn't part of the plan. So Cable's taken by surprise. And the base starts falling apart. He seems to go into a sewage tunnel here. X-Force, I'm cut off from you. Clear out fast is his command. What happened, he's asking. How could the charges have detonated without my voice command? How? So that's a little mystery. And meanwhile, the countdown's continuing. Cannonball here. What did he do this time? We'll never get out of here in time. X-Force around me quickly. Weapon Prime, you two, hurry. See, we can't see any of this in the background. Boom, boom. Drop Richter if you have to. Lord, get over to me now. We don't have much. And then a massive explosion. So that's so much for the Adirondack X-Force base. Blown to bits. And again, we see that those inking techniques from Panosian. The white media cut into the blast lines, indicating small debris. And we've got the smudge inking technique here, maybe with a dry brush, maybe with some cotton wool or something like that, or a piece of sponge around the edges as well. Really nicely done. And last page though, this is the last page, Sicily, and it's Tolliver's base. And he's got the real domino here, and he's celebrating with some cocktails the death of X-Force as he sees it. Very soon the bodies will be found, won't they? The trigger override we had Vanessa prepare worked rather well, didn't it? A toast then, my dear Domino, to success, to the death of Cable. And next issue, Payback. So Liefeld's plot continuing. Nicieza hasn't wrapped it up in this one issue yet. And the next issue, who's coming on board except for Greg Capullo? So we're going to see a huge shift in the art style with the arrival of Capullo, who will do a good year's run on the title. And as I said, no notice here regarding Liefeld's departure. Only Bob Harris runs a letter given out about Liefeld's plot and how sluggish it is. That's kind of funny. So there you go. I do hope that you enjoyed this review and commentary on X-Force number 13. Let me know your thoughts on this comic in the comment section to the video. And if you enjoyed my review and commentary, please like the video on YouTube. It really does help the channel. And if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for more content like this.